So the school was started 11 years ago to be part of the community and to be an essential part of the community. And a project like the Acequia Project is just further proof of doing that. What's nice is one of the things we try to teach students is that when they're working in the community, they get as much as they give.
Acequia is a big deal. I mean, we read a lot of textbooks and articles and other stuff we could find about that stuff, and I don't know if somebody's already told you this, but they call it their bloodline. They say it's the veins to their community, it's the veins to their society, and that's what keeps them going. So the water is very important to how they live and how they have lived for many years. I think what threatens it most is that people don't know what has happened there in the past and the history behind it, and that's why it is vandalized and there's graffiti there, is because they don't know the history and what's gone on there, and I think that's what threatens it the most, and that's why we try to educate as many people as we could.
My name is Brad Schulke, and I'm a science teacher at East Mountain High School. The Acequia originated in the about middle 18th century. Some families from Albuquerque got permission from the King of Spain to move up into the mountains and inhabit that area and then foster the development of the area. And that included the building of the acequias. The people that we've been fortunate enough to work with that still live there and run the acequia, some of those families have been living there for 14 generations. And Chris Hinzo, the mayordomo, has documentation that goes back for those 14 generations. So it's pretty spectacular when you think about how long of a time span that is.
My name's Michael Jamison. I'm a teacher at East Mountain High School. I teach New Mexico history. Well, part of our New Mexico history curriculum is to look at the East Mountains and the local history up here. So I've done some research looking into the local communities up here, of which San Antonio is one. So we have some resources there on the history of the acequia and how it's been basically the lifeblood of the community for hundreds of years. Well, in New Mexico, water is life. So, throughout the history of man, they've always migrated and established settlements near water sources because of the climate and the environment. So, they use water for all life purposes, whether that would be, drinking water for themselves, or because the animals tend to migrate towards water sources as well. That would provide a food source. You have your plants and trees that need water to survive as well. Obviously, we have more access to water than people did in the past, so we don't have to rely on it so much for, sustenance. So today it's a little bit more about tradition and heritage and preserving that. So I think there's a lot of importance in non-tangible formats and ways.
Well, I'm the science teacher that's been involved in the project for the longest period of time. So, and I teach environmental science, so I'm mostly focused on the plants, the animals, the water, soil quality, and things like that. And so we've been monitoring mostly the water quality for about 6 years now. And when we get a report established, we give that report to the Acequia Association and give them some indication of the quality of the water. That's our biggest role there, although now we're expanding into understanding more about the plants of the area. a new project that we just started last year, which is really exciting, is there's an orchard there, and we're trying to graft the trees that are starting to die, that are unique genetic varieties of apple trees and cherry trees and stuff there, because we're afraid they're going to die out if we don't graft them. So we're starting to graft those, and we want to kind of build up that genetic bank, and then be able to replenish those genetic varieties that are there. So that's a project that we just really started. It's kind of hard to do that level of genetic work in a high school setting, but we're slowly making progress, and hopefully we'll be able to reach a state where we can replenish that orchard on an ongoing basis. You know, what I think is really lacking in our culture today is what ecologists call a sense of place. And what that means is, I always tell my students, you know, when I start talking about sense of place, I say, you have a really strong sense of place about your bedroom. Like, you've got your bedroom set up hopefully the way you want it. You know, your parents don't interfere too much, and you kind of got your stereo where you want it, and you know where everything is. And that sense of place means a lot to you guys. My personal sense of place is my house. I love my house. I kind of live like it's kind of a log cabin, but it's kind of up in the trees. And so that's my personal sense of place. I feel really strongly about it. But especially in your guys' generation, most people don't have a strong sense of place about the community that they live in, especially the natural community, the natural ecosystems around the area. So my favorite thing is to get the kids out to the acequia and try to get them to appreciate it. One of my mentors said something to me several years ago that took me a while to really understand, but he said, you can't love a place you don't understand. And I took that to heart. And so when you talk about sense of place, you know, if the kids don't get out there and explore the area, how do you expect them to care about a place that they've never been to or that they don't understand? I mean, it's a pretty unique place. The surface water maintains a lot of plants that would normally not be in that area. The acequia ditches increase the biodiversity of the plants there. And so in that sense, it's a very unique part of the Sandias, because without that surface water there's a whole slew of plant species that would not be able to survive there. And there's very few places in the Sandias where there's permanent surface water that allows that increase in biodiversity of the plant life. And then, of course, the water brings in all the wildlife from the Sandias too. In New Mexico, only 1% to 2% of the surface area of New Mexico is covered with surface water, but 65% of all the species of animal and plant species require surface water for part of their life cycle. There's several species of plants there that both historically and currently are being used by the members of the association for natural herbs and natural cures. So even if you go out there and do some filming, the ditches are only that wide, and they're only, half a mile long, but they provide an invaluable water resource for all the plants and animals of the Sandias.
A lot of times, as far as repair and cleaning, is usually in the fall. When the leaves fall down from the trees, that's basically one of our busiest times cleaning the acequia. As far as repairs, sometimes animals, such as bear, tend to drink along the acequia like they have been for many years, and they also tend to break the acequia once in a while. So this is pretty much a day-to-day thing where you go and check. Sometimes you have repairs, and sometimes you don't.
No podía yo vivir en otro lugar sin sequía, ¿no? Estoy muy acostumbrado a vivir con agua, ¿sabes? Agua para mi jardín, agua para mi tomar,
para el café,
para cocinar,
para cocinar. The beans come out beautiful with that water. When you cook beans with los
frijoles y comida, sale muy... Tú sabes que el agua se limpia cada 10 pies, se corre entre piedra y en arena, se limpia cada 10 pies.
Well, I know that they have a tradition once a year in May where they kind of formally honor the acequia and the patron saint, I think, of the church, San Antonio.
So there's a story about the acequia that when it could have actually ended, there was developers who would come in and were going to develop the land and put houses on it, and it was a very nice piece of real estate, and he was going to cash in on that. And Chris Hinzo and other members of the Acequia Association were not okay with that, and they took it to heart, and they stood out there with their shotguns and whatever else, and just stood there and blocked the bulldozer and said, if you're going to build on this land, you got to go through us. And that proved to be instrumental to what the acequia is now and why it's still preserved the way it is today, and that ultimately made it an open space by the Bernalillo County.
Bueno, todo lo que sé es que mis padres nos dejaron la acequia. Trabajaron no sé cuántos años, pero todo lo que sé yo es que los dejaron la acequia. Que la trabajáramos, que la cuidáramos, que no nos dejaran los extranjeros, que nos la quitaran. No es todo lo que sé yo, nomás que no había norias, no había nada. La sequía era la única razón de agua.
When we talk about the support we get in the community, we have people who help, who give us money and make this happen. The AOL Aspire Fund got this started with a very generous grant. State Farm Foundation has also helped us and kept things moving, and then we've had this additional help from the Albuquerque Community Foundation, allowing us to finish this video, get some of the artwork done. And without it, with most of the work we do at this school, it could not happen without our communities. Thank you very much.